think I am still suffering a little bit from a Halloween hangover. This past Halloween really went off, and it lasted for a long time. I think we had more events than we've ever had before, and I chose to be something different every day for about at least a week and a half. If you follow me on social media, you'll see that I literally had a different costume on every day. Sometimes just for fun, sometimes because they were suggested for different events we went to, but mostly just for fun, just because I wanted to wear something different. And the common question was, where do you store all this crap when you're done? Like, you have more costumes than anybody I've ever seen. And it's true. I've always had just a plethora of dress up stuff. I've always loved dressing up. We have absolutely no storage room, and I don't put the costumes completely away because throughout the year, I inevitably want to pull something out and put it on. I have mentioned a number of times how much I love and have always loved doing shows, and I still do them. I just now have a built-in audience. My kids have to sit and watch me. If I feel like I'm going to do a show, I sit my audience down, meaning my two kids, and I'll do a show. I'll need to grab a wig or put something on. When I was John Travolta, when I actually, one of the days this past Halloween was on Halloween night, I dressed as John Travolta, and that was just Sandler's tuxedo from the trip to Alaska that he had requested. And it didn't fit me, not even close. It was a risky move if I went to sit down in that thing on Halloween night. But I just put that on. I had the wig and did a little Saturday Night Fever dance, and that was that. But I've always needed and wanted to have costumes available to dress up in, even if it was just a random day, but especially around, obviously, Halloween and then the holidays. And these performances that I would put on, I think are what got me through the holidays. Because truthfully, our holidays sucked. My parents hated each other. And when the holidays would come around, they would fight more than they did throughout the year, which was a lot. But they would fight about money. It was always about money. And I remember thinking, okay, obviously I have no money. I'm a kid. How can I fix the holiday season? How can I fix Christmas? How can I fix Thanksgiving? No one gets along. I'll do a show. I'll put on a costume and I'll do a show and I'll throw in some holiday magic. And it was the gift of my entertainment that I thought would fix the holiday season, no matter what, no matter how bad it was at home, no matter how much my parents were fighting, no matter how much money we didn't have to get through the holidays. It was my amazing acting skills I thought would save the holiday season. I think maybe there was the hope that this year will be different. This year, that magical holiday ending is going to happen. It's all going to miraculously just be perfect. And I just never let go of that. But never, ever did a single holiday between Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's ever go as I expected. I'm Nikki Lynn Chase, and this is my podcast, Adult Chicken, and it's about navigating life's unexpected. These are my stories. This is my journey about being a mom to two special needs kids. When Halloween was over and it was time to start getting ready for Thanksgiving, I remember my brother and I knew that as Julekaka season. Julekaka is a Norwegian bread, and my mom's whole side of the family is Norwegian, and her mom, Grandma Helen, was this big Norwegian woman who thought she was an amazing cook, and she loved baking Julekaka. And it's appropriate that the word kaka is in there because her bread tasted like absolute shit. And it was so embarrassing because she would make us take that bread. She'd just bake loaves and loaves of this stuff and make us gift our teachers this Julekaka. And it was just absolutely mortifying and humiliating that we would have to take this disgusting bread, sort of like our family's traditional fruit cake, to teachers or anybody who had anything to do with our family. So I had spent the day with my grandmother, and she had been baking probably 25 loaves of her nasty Julekaka for me to gift to all of my teachers or anybody that we were going to see prior to Thanksgiving. And I remember that specific day going to my happy place, and that is I'm going to put the energy had already shifted at the house. I mean, it was never good between my parents, but during the holidays, my dad absolutely hated, still does, hates and hated Thanksgiving and hated and hates Christmas even more. And I thought that year I was going to fix it. I was going to put this show on. And I was kind of in production mode. And I was really young and I knew nothing, but I was thinking at Grandma Helen's, I'm thinking of the different various characters I'm going to play. And I think I'm going to be funny and be my dad for this particular production. So, as she's baking furiously, handing over the burnt pieces of yulakaka, I'm going through it. I'm really in production mode. And then she drops me off at home with all of my loaves of yulakaka I'm to gift to everybody. I decide I'm going to go through my parents' closet and pick my wardrobe for this big production I'm going to do to fix the family funk of the holiday season. And I, again, am going to be my father. So I find this shirt and I think it's particularly ugly. I had this idea that he'd think I was hysterical. I was going to be like a funny version of my dad. And I found this hideous shirt hanging in his closet and I put it on. And then I put on some pants or something of his. And I looked down and in the pocket, the chest pocket, there's a wad of cash. And it's thick. I mean, I'm a kid. Any wad of cash seems thick, but as an adult, I know it was particularly thick. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I thought, oh my God, my dad has forgotten. He's got all this money in this shirt. I've never even seen him wear this shirt. I never even knew he had this shirt. This shirt's so ugly. Hence, that's the one he chose to store all of his money. And it probably was his getaway money, his getaway from my mother money, which no one would fault him for having that fund, that emergency fund of, I got to get away from this crazy lunatic. But I brought it to my mom's attention. I thought, I've got to let somebody know I've just found all of this money. And I remember that holiday, all of it, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Eve, it was a miserable holiday because I brought that to my mom's attention and her finding out about this fund, whatever that money was for, did not sit well. So feeling like I had derailed the whole holiday season that year. And shortly after that, my parents were divorced. I think they made it through the holidays. I know my dad's stuff, everything that he owned, all of his clothing, every item he owned was on the lawn that year. And I think it got put back into the house and we got through New Year's. And I think it was that year that they were finally divorced. And then holidays got more interesting and awful because my mom became this epic drunk. And I remember my first fall break, I came home, and that was the last Thanksgiving I ever went home. My mom fell from the top of the stairs, tumbled all the way down in a state of stupor and drunk, and had made, she inherited my grandmother's poor ability to cook. And that year, she must have been drinking and cooking at the same time. There were pine nuts and everything. And I couldn't figure that out because she was the cheapest woman in the world. I'm like, pine nuts seem like kind of an expensive treat. And she had put them in the pies. They were in the salad. They were in the mashed potatoes. They were in the stuffing. There were pine nuts in absolutely everything. And that was the last Thanksgiving I ever went home, and the last holiday I spent in my family, in my childhood home. And when I became an adult and had my own kids, I started really understanding the stress of holidays and what it does to people, as far as how stressful it is to have to buy gifts, how stressful it was to want to make things look like back then in the magazines or now social media posts. Everything takes so much money on top of you're paying your bills and everything that you regularly have to take care of and do. And I lost sight probably quite a bit of what holidays are really about and what that season, what Thanksgiving was really about. And I was, of course, married at the time, and he wasn't a whole lot different from my dad in that he became a monster during the holidays. Well, he was a monster always, but holidays in particular got to be very tumultuous, stressful times. And it wasn't until I left Colorado with the two kids and we get to the state of Washington. Once we got to Washington, we had nothing. and this amazing group had found us. I don't know if it was through the school or through the state, but a group called Kiwanis, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but they've been around for years and years and years, and it's a philanthropy group or foundation. And they found us, and they actually had asked me to speak at a luncheon, and it was right around the holiday time. And then they asked if they could gift us a Thanksgiving feast with all the fixings, a turkey and everything. And I was so over the top grateful because I literally didn't have any idea what I was going to do with the kids or how I was going to feed them a Thanksgiving dinner. Now, they didn't care. They were so young, and honestly, they didn't know differently, nor did they care. But we ended up having the greatest holiday season ever. And we were gifted that Thanksgiving feast. Then they came back and also helped me out for Christmas, and the kids ended up, they helped Santa Claus out, and the kids ended up with a beautiful Christmas. And the creativity, my being creative, my being resourceful, I just remember that year making, I didn't have a single ornament from my past. I didn't even have any pictures from my past. I had nothing. So it was just starting over, and that was an amazing feeling. And I think I finally, for the first time in my entire life, or at least my entire adult life, realized the true meaning of holidays. As cliche or goofy as that might sound, we had nothing. So everything was enjoyed and appreciated on a whole different level than I had ever experienced before. And that particular year in Washington, when it came time to decorating for Christmas, I just remember thinking, what am I going to do? I don't have money. I have no money to decorate. What am I going to do? I bought some lights. I bought a real tree. It was a very small tree. I put it on the stroller because that was when I was pushing a stroller around the entire town, usually with the two kids. So we went and picked this. It wasn't a very big tree, but I put it on the back of the stroller. And then I decorated it. At the time, I had an affection for Bud Light, and I took all the bottle caps off of Bud Light bottles, and I hot glued gun them onto twine, and I made a Bud Light Christmas tree. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful little heartfelt Christmas tree with things that I love, decorations made from Bud Light bottles. And that was our holiday time. And I just had this whole new appreciation for what holidays were supposed to be and what they were supposed to mean. And the look of happiness and elation on my kids' face. And they're not hard kids to please. I will say that. They are not. They are so easily entertained and delighted. And I just felt so eternally blessed and lucky. And I included my own holiday entertainment. I dressed up. We did shows. They got involved. We were doing holiday shows that whole entire season. And then we relocated to California. And again, same thing, just being as creative as I can, doing these little things I never would have thought to have done, but making things work for the holidays. It was easier in California because of the weather. So we didn't have a car, but we could walk around and look at Christmas lights and do all of this with the right, the right temperature. And the school district knew our situation and asked if I wouldn't mind if they made us the holiday family, if they could help us get through the holidays. And I was eternally grateful because, again, I didn't know how I was going to do it. And they were very, very generous and giving for several holidays. So I hold on to the meaning of the holidays pretty well and have continued to do so. But there was a hiccup, and it was a few years ago. And we had graduated out of the studio. We had graduated to finally, after 6 years of not having a car, we finally had a car. And I know I was going through a lot emotionally. Sandler was going through that was one of his more extensive moments of surgery time. And just, I was emotionally spent. I was drained. I didn't know how we were going to get through certain days. At this particular year, we were still the Christmas family at the school, I knew that was going to be very helpful. And we'd gotten our first gift from the school, and they They were really sweet in that they'd ask for kind of a wish list of what would the kids like, and they would gift us necessities, and it was really helpful, just ultimately awesome and amazing and helpful. And I was so excited because I'd gotten this picture perfect Christmas box, and it had a lid, the kind that's already wrapped and prepared. And it had the lid like something you see from a movie where you take the bow off and you lift up the lid, and it had a hat in it. And I just remember I loved it. Obviously, I wear a hat every single day. And so we had gotten a tree, and there was that one box, but I had opened it early that year. I'd already looked in it, but I was getting stressed out. Thanksgiving hadn't gone quite as expected. I was just feeling the financial burden of the holidays, the kids' expectations, and they're older now and they're wanting this, that, and the other thing. I'm going through it emotionally with Sandler and his medical issues at this time. I'm just drained. The holidays were draining and stressing me out, and we had just a year, and I was just emotionally done. And I knew I had there were some packages coming from Santa Claus, but it just struck me. It was the morning of Christmas Eve, and I thought, "Oh boy, there's a lot to be done before tomorrow." And the kids had crossed that bridge. They'd gotten older. There were expectations. There were expectations that I'm not sure were going to be met, and I was not going to lie. I was emotionally drained, and I was a little bitter. My kids at this point knew their father was not helpful, and the way I sort of evaded that conversation was that he lived in a place called Nopeo. It was a village called Nopeo, and it was a place where a lot of people lived who didn't pay or help pay for their kids or anything. It was probably a little bit passive aggressive way of explaining that he was a deadbeat, and I was a little frustrated. And we were at Trader Joe's, and I'm just deflated. I'm not excited. It's the first holiday I really was not looking forward to. I was very, very stressed out that particular year, and it was all about money. And I thought, God, this came full circle. Here I said I'd never worry about that again, and holidays are not about that. But I didn't know how I was going to get through this particular holiday. And I'm at Trader Joe's Christmas Eve morning with everybody else in town. It's so high stress. And the kids and I are half dressed. I think I had pajama bottoms on that could have like they might have looked like leggings, so you could really not tell. But I get a text while I'm there, and it's a friend of mine who knows I'm just over it, over everything, just stressed out as all stress could be. And he said, "Hey," and he's saying this in a joking manner, but he's serious and he's a reliable person. He said, "I think your ex is sitting at the bar right now in front of me. If you want, our dog just laid a bunch of fresh piles of shit in the yard. If you want to go by and pick some up and give them to him." I couldn't check out fast enough. I thought, "Oh, you're damn right I'm going to." I drove straight from the store, straight to my friend's house. Nope. Wait, interruption. Detour. I went home. I picked up that beautiful Christmas box that had the hat in it. Beautiful Christmas box. And then I had a Christmas bag. And I got some tissue paper. And I went to my friend's house who had texted me that message. And his wife was there. And I said, "Hey, can you watch the kids for just a couple of minutes? I need to go dig up some of your dog's shit in your yard real quick. So I need a bag and just lead me in the right direction." And she did. And I walked into the bar, and I was so angry and upset that he was sitting there having himself some adult beverages, not a care in the world, not having spent a dime, not worried about gifting his kids a single thing in the entire world, not having spent an ounce or a penny on them. And I put the dog shit in the beautiful box, and I put the beautiful box in the beautiful Christmas bag, and I walked in with a huge smile on my face. And it was just a few people, very few people at the bar on Christmas Eve. And he lit up like a Christmas tree, like, oh my gosh. And he was with a friend. And he's kind of like got this look of, look at me, my ex-wife is still so into me that she's brought me a Christmas gift. And he said, how did you know I was here? And I said, well, that connection we have, it just really just, that Christmas connection, it just really reached out to me and told me I'd find you here. And I said, I didn't want to go another Christmas without giving you something. So I got you this. And I watched my buddy and his friend that had texted me, their jaws were on the floor. He didn't send me that text thinking I would do it. He did it sort of as just to stir the pot a little bit. And then in I walk with his huge Christmas gift, and it's dog shit. And he and his buddy had to get up and leave because they were dying. And I hand over the gift, and then I had to run out of there as fast as I could. And I can't even begin to tell you how much I would pay to have seen the look on his face when he opened that. I don't know. I didn't even hear about it for a couple of years. I think I eventually got a message about the gift. I don't think it was a thank you, but I got a message about that. And aside from knowing what the meaning of holiday season is, I do appreciate the fact that my lack of money, my lack of finances, have always given me the ability to be a creative gift giver. And that has to be one of my most creative, maybe not the kindest gift I've given, but I mean, harmless, really. I don't think it smelled very good. So follow me for more ideas on inexpensive gift giving. Just kidding. Today's special edition, extra, extra, read all about it. We've got the craziest stories, no doubt about it, is a Thanksgiving story about when I lived in New York. And it was my favorite thing ever in my whole entire life at Thanksgiving time has been the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Every year I watch that thing. If I miss it, I freak out. It is my favorite thing. And I was living in New York and realized, oh my gosh, I'm going to be living here when that parade goes on. I am going to that parade in real life. And I was living with all these flight attendants. And of course, they left. They had the ability to fly home or fly for work. They were all gone. And there I was in my apartment. Well, most people in New York City, they'll leave on a lot of people who have the ability to get out of the city will do so on weekends, but definitely on holidays, or they have places or family to spend time with. Well, I was there 100% on my own. And I was told at that time I wasn't being gifted a ticket or anything to get home. So I was going to have Thanksgiving in New York by myself. And I didn't know anybody. I knew people, but I didn't know anybody who was going to be in the city at that time. And I had no way to get out of the city. And I had nowhere to go that was in close proximity that I could get to. And so I thought I'll take myself to the parade. Well, I woke up on Thanksgiving morning and it was pouring rain. And I thought, I don't want to go to that parade. I don't want to go by myself. It's pouring rain. That just sounds miserable. It sounds awful. And I realized I have nothing to do. I have nowhere to go. I'm in this yucky apartment, and it was yucky. Our apartment was yucky, and it was old, and it was cold, and it was dreary. And I thought nothing's going to be open, and I didn't have any money, and I didn't know what I was going to do. There were a couple of canned spinach, which that was a hot commodity in that apartment. They didn't belong to me. And the girls, the flight attendants, none of us had money. none of us could afford to live there, but we were all living there. But you didn't mess with somebody's food. That was a big no-no. And I thought, I can't steal a can of spinach. But you know what? I have to treat myself. I can't have this kind of holiday. I can't have Thanksgiving. I am in New York City. I mean, that is like the essence of holidayness. I mean, this is where the holiday happens. This is where the Rockefeller tree lights up. And I was working right there. And I thought, just go. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I thought, that is going to make me feel so lonely and awful. And it was just pouring rain that year. And I couldn't figure out what I was going to do. And I started thinking to myself, I think I know why people get so depressed during holidays. That was the first time I ever felt depressed over the holiday. And downstairs there was a Quiznos. I don't even know if those still exist. And I went down, and it was like the biggest treat because, again, I had no money. So the biggest treat I could ever get myself was, and it was the only thing that was open, was a Quiznos sub sandwich. So needless to say, I didn't see the parade except for sitting there in our dreary living room on the TV, and I sat on the floor. I cried. I cried that whole entire day, and it just rained, and I just forever was eternally grateful from that Thanksgiving forward for any and every Thanksgiving I spent. Even though I had some tumultuous ones in between, I was so grateful to have friends and to have put myself in a situation where I never spent another Thanksgiving completely alone. And I am eternally grateful for that time I had to make me appreciate. It's important to surround yourself with people who you are thankful for. And I forever and always will cherish that miserable, miserable Thanksgiving and just know that that made me appreciate the fact that I will never be in that position. I will never allow myself to be in that position again. So please tune in next week for an episode all about friends and foes whom I will never or will forever spend my holidays with. Please, please, please subscribe, like, follow, share. You can find me at adultchicken.com. Please check it out. It's a whole new website. You can also find me on Apple and Spotify podcasts, as well as YouTube, Adult Chicken, and also Instagram, adult_chicken.